I just want to welcome everybody today for our spotlight on learning disability careers. So before we begin, I just wanted to cover sort of general housekeeping. So the session today is being recorded and it will be available on demand on the Humber and North Yorkshire Careers Hub website in the new year. To help with the smooth running of the session, we have disabled delegates' videos and microphones. So if you do have any questions during the session, please pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer those as we go through the webinar or at the end. And if everybody else keeps their microphones off until it's your turn to speak, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'm Tina Jenkinson and I work for the Humber and North Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership as the Careers and Employability Manager. So for those of you who don't know anything about the Health and Care Partnership, we formed in 2002 and we comprise of NHS organisations, local councils, health and care providers and voluntary community and social enterprise organisations. And the partnership is one of 42 integrated care systems which cover England to meet the health and care needs across an area, coordinate services and plan in a way that improves population health and reduces inequalities between different groups. So we actually cover a geographical area of more than 1,500 square miles and we serve a population of 1.7 million people, all with different health and care needs. And our geographical area includes Hull, East Riding, York, North Yorkshire, North Lincolnshire, North East Lincolnshire. So in order for us to meet health and care needs of the population, we need to ensure that we've got an appropriately skilled workforce reflective of the communities that we serve. So this is where my role comes in as Careers and Employability Manager, and that is to develop our talent pipeline and inspire and grow our future workforce. So for one of the ways we do this is by delivering sessions like these webinars, just to showcase the range of careers available in the sector and highlight those variety of different route ways that we have to get into health and care. So I'm delighted to bring you this webinar today to shine a spotlight on careers in learning disabilities and the variety of different route ways into it. So learning disability professions are a real vital part of our workforce. We've got over 1.2 million people in England with learning disabilities, and to ensure people with a learning disability have access to the health and care they need, it's vital that we have the right people in the right roles. So there's a huge range of roles across health and care, specialising in working with people with learning disabilities, and we're just going to look at some of those today. So the session, we're going to have Gemma Holden from the University of Hull. So Gemma's going to give us an introduction to learning disability careers. Gemma's also a learning disability nurse by background. So she's going to give us her story of how she got into the sector. And then we're going to hear from various people who are working in the sector. So we've got a support worker, speech and language therapist, admin apprentice and social worker. So I'll hand over to Gemma now, who's going to give us the overview for learning disability careers. So over to you, Gemma.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what learning disabilities actually is and why we need people working in this area. We really do. We need to increase our numbers to make sure that the people that we work with get the right care and treatment. So if you can just move along to the next slide. I'll just give you a little bit of an overview of what a learning disability is in case you're not aware. So it's quite an old definition. It's from 2001 and a really important document in learning disabilities. And it gives us a definition of what a learning disability is. So it talks about the presence of a reduced ability to understand new or complex information and a reduced ability to cope independently. And finally, that it must have started under the age of 18. We previously focused a lot on IQ as in learning disabilities, but we are moving away from that now. And we generally go under this definition, although you will find lots of other definitions out there as well from places like the World Health Organization. So next slide, please. So just some facts that should represent really and demonstrate why we need more people in the area of learning disabilities. So we've got approximately 1.5 million people in the UK with a learning disability. And these are people with different ranges of learning disabilities and different severities. So people with severe learning disabilities, people who need the most amount of help and support, there's an estimation that there's about 350,000 people with severe learning disabilities. And the research suggests that this figure is probably increasing due to us with medical advances, babies who were born who previously wouldn't have survived are now more likely to survive. And then obviously end of life care is a lot better as well, so people are living longer. We've got to always acknowledge as well that a learning disability is different to a learning difficulty. So learning difficulty, we're looking at things such as dyslexia and dyscalculia, for example. However, somebody with a learning disability may well have them as well, which can really make it a bit more difficult for someone to manage on a day-to-day basis. And then there's lots of reasons why people have learning disabilities, and I won't go into all of these. It's there on the slides for you to have a look at. But obviously there's things such as inherited conditions, exposure to some things within the environment, things like oxygen starvation at birth, lots of reasons why people might have a learning disability. And sadly, people with learning disabilities are some of the most vulnerable people in society. They're more at risk of abuse, more at risk of having their health needs missed. So we really do need lots of people to help support this population. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I've just covered just a couple of areas to be aware of when we're thinking about learning disabilities. And there's a reason there's a wide range of careers, is because we have to work with people's physical health, mental health, social issues, lots of areas. So when we think about people's physical health, sadly for people with a learning disability, they do die much younger than the general population. Although the latest report that's come out this week has said that we've got approximately a 2.5-year increase on life expectancy over the last 5 years. That's still really not good enough. You can see from the figures here that women with a learning disability generally die 18 years younger than the general population, and men 14 years younger. There's also a lot of figures around avoidable deaths for people with learning disabilities, and locally approximately 46% of the deaths could have been avoided, which is really, really sad. And then we also know that people with learning disabilities do not always have access to the screening that the general population has. Again, you can see there's just a figure around smear tests, that only 31% of women with a learning disability have received smear tests compared to 73% of women without a learning disability. So you can see there's a real disparity there. Okay, when we move on to mental health, we do often find that learning disabilities and mental health go hand in hand. So when people come on our programmes at the university, they might be studying learning disabilities, but we always teach quite heavily on mental health issues as well. So as you can see, evidence suggests that the rates of mental health problems are double that of the general population. And there's lots and lots of reasons. We've already talked about some of the ways that people learn disabilities are disadvantaged. So if you're facing that on a daily basis, that's likely to have some impact on your mental health. People with learning disabilities are also more vulnerable to abuse, as I said, also hate crimes, and they have less access to things such as employment, social activity, and good housing. So there's lots of reasons why mental health issues are much more common. But mental health is also often missed in our client group because of something called diagnostic overshadowing. So that's when somebody with a learning disability or any other condition will be deemed as not having a physical or mental health problem, and they're just saying it's down to their learning disability. And that's not always the case. And sadly, a lot of conditions are missed because of that. Okay, next slide. So, learning disability nursing. So I'd like to encourage people to take up learning disability nursing. It's an absolutely incredible career. It's one that I'm very, very passionate about. And as programme director for the Learning Disability Nursing Programme, I obviously want to promote people coming to be learning disability nurses. It's a real honour to be part of somebody's life in the way that we get to be. We are advocates. We share with people the ups, the downs, the really hard times. And we have a really lovely time where we get to know people and we look at person-centeredness. So we understand the holistic needs of people. We're not just seeing someone coming into a hospital in A&E, for example, and then discharging them. We actually are part of somebody's life. And it's a really privilege to be doing that. Okay, so next slide. So why do we think people should become learning disability nurses, or even, I suppose, work in learning disabilities? So learning disability nursing is one of the most varied careers available. If I think back to the people I studied with when I was training to become a learning disability nurse, not one of us is in the same job. We're all doing different things. We're really lucky because we can work with people of all ages and in other fields. So learning disability is a lifelong condition. So our students are trained to work with people from start of life to end of life. So that means that when qualified, they can go on to work with children, they can go on to work with in mental health or older adults. It gives us lots of opportunities. At the moment, there's estimated to be about 135 different roles available for learning disability nurses. And that's quite a lot, really. It gives you an opportunity when you're qualified to go and do anything you want to. Locally and nationally, learning disability nurses, when they do finish the programmes, there is 100% employment. So all of our students go on to have really good careers. In fact, some of our students finish with 4 job offers. There's never a shortage of jobs in this area. Like I already said, we do get to work in a person-centred way. We get to really know people. And as learning disability nurses, we become a bit of a family because there's not loads and loads of us. So we all know each other and we all know who to contact when there's issues. And at the moment, there is a really big push to increase the number of learning disability nurses that are entering the NMC register. So student nurses, for example, all get a bursary. In learning disabilities, it's slightly more because we need to try and entice people onto the programmes. So, there's an extra £1,000 a year to come and study learning disability nursing. Okay, next slide. So I talked to you about the different careers that you can go into as a learning disability nurse. There's just a few of them here, and you can see there's all sorts, from working as public health nurses to a nurse psychotherapist. A lot of our learning disability nurses go on to do additional training, and then they can specialise in different areas. Can also work in safeguarding, and I know some nurses who work within prisons or who work for the Department of Health. There's lots of areas that you can specialise in once qualified. Slide. So in terms of coming into learning disabilities, whether that's to be a learning disability nurse or just to work in any of the professions, there's lots of different routes into this. I tend to find most people I speak to have had some personal experience. So they have either worked in the past with somebody with a learning disability, they've got a family member, they know somebody who's got a learning disability, or they know somebody who works in learning disabilities. Generally, the people that we see have got some understanding of what a learning disability is. We see a lot of people who come into learning disability nursing because they start out as a healthcare assistant or a support worker, or they've been somebody's personal assistant. And then we have a group of people who have done some voluntary work and they've spent time with people with learning disabilities, and then they maybe want to take that further. So in terms of becoming a learning disability nurse, there are 3 routes. This is our university's 3 routes. The first one I've got on the list here is going from a nursing associate to a registered nurse. So we have registered nursing associates out there now practicing, doing an amazing job. But quite a few of them want to top up their programme and go on to become a registered nurse. And they do that by doing an 18-month programme to take them to that level. We have the traditional BSc nursing route, which is what I'm programme director for. So that's a 3-year learning disability nurse programme at the university. So lots of universities who do run that. Obviously, we run it here. The smaller cohorts, it's a really nice way to enter into learning disabilities. And then finally, we have the registered nurse degree apprenticeship, or otherwise known as the RNDA programme. So we have some apprentices doing the learning disability programme. At the moment, that's quite small, but we do want to increase that. So that's where people are employed already, and then they come and spend time with us at the university to get their academic qualification. The qualification requirements that I've put on the side are what's required to enter onto the BSc nursing programme or to do the registered nurse degree apprenticeship. But there's lots more information on qualification requirements either on the university website or on UCAS. So just to cover my journey and how I ended up here, I didn't leave school with many GCSEs, can't say it now, just a couple really. And I knew I wanted to do something. I thought I wanted to be a mental health nurse because my dad was a mental health nurse, so that's where I thought I might go. So I started nursing, and at the time, I also started working in a home for older adults, in a nursing home. When I finished my college course, I actually decided that I wasn't going to go to university. I thought I'd buy a house and I'd get married. And then suddenly I was in employment and I was getting paid and thought, well, that's it, I'll just stay where I am. And then a friend said to me, why don't I take a job in a learning disability supported living home? I'd never heard of learning disabilities. I didn't know what learning disabilities was at all. And I was only 20, I think 19 or 20. And my friend said, well, come and work here because it pays a bit more. And that honestly was the reason I took a job at this home. And when I went the first day, I didn't particularly like it, in all honesty. But she encouraged me to go back the next day. And I absolutely fell in love with the client group and the people I was working with, the team. And I actually stayed there for 6 years. I absolutely loved what I did. I then moved on to another service. I did some things with people with really complex behavioural issues, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I was then promoted to a senior support worker, which I really enjoyed, but I felt like there was more to give. I needed to do something else. And suddenly a learning disability nurse visited our service, and I thought, that's what I can do. I can be one of them. So I applied to university, and when I did apply, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my husband. Really silly, actually, I probably should have. But I thought, I might not even end up doing it, so I'll just apply. And I got accepted. And then suddenly, 3 years later, I was registered as a learning disability nurse and got my first job in community nursing. What I had realised though, while doing my training, was I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed my module that was on teaching. I really looked up to my lecturers. I thought, actually, that's what I'd quite like to do. I'd like to teach people about learning disabilities. So after a few years of being working in the community as a nurse, I took a job with the training department at Humber Foundation Trust. And I was there for 6 years. I absolutely loved it, but I always knew my heart was in lecturing. I really wanted to return to the university, which gave me such good education. I wanted to go back. So in 2019, I actually applied for an adult lecturing post, which again just shows what a learning disability career can do. I never thought for 1 second I'd be accepted onto adult nursing, but I was successful, and I really enjoyed it. And then last year I was offered the lead for learning disability nursing programme. And that's where I've been since, and I've got no intentions of leaving this role at all. So that is my journey, and I've loved it, every minute of it. So a little bit about a day in the life. I've split this into two really, because my day in the life of being a learning disability nurse is very different to my day in the life of being a learning disability lecturer. And one of my colleagues, Paula, helped me put together what the role of a learning disability nurse is, because she's just come from the community. It was a while ago I was there. So a day is very different for a learning disability nurse. No 2 days are ever the same. There are basic things that you will do on a day-to-day basis, such as there will be attending meetings, there'll be checking communications and emails, but then there'll be different visits to patients. You might be visiting someone in their own home, or you might be visiting them in the hospital. You might be assessing someone's care, or you might be evaluating the care, or anywhere in between. There's lots of work with the multidisciplinary team and external agencies. So in my time being a community nurse, I spent a lot of time working with the criminal justice system, or with education or social care. It's really interesting. In terms of a day in the life of my role now, again, no 2 days are the same. I spend a lot of time developing the curriculum to make sure that the learning disability students of the future are getting taught exactly what they need to be taught. I teach, obviously, and I assess and I supervise students. I do an awful lot of external engagement, trying to increase people applying for learning disability nursing. And I attend about 3,000 meetings, an awful lot, and meet some really interesting people. I also spend a lot of time working with practice providers. Just today I've met up with the practice providers, again, to make sure that our students are having a good experience and getting what they need to become really good nurses. And then finally, completing reports. Of course, no job comes without completing reports. So that's, again, a big part of my role.
That's great. Thanks very much, Gemma. I think that's really interesting just to see kind of the range of different roles that are available within kind of learning disability nursing and those progression opportunities as well. It just goes to show you can start off sort of the bottom end coming in and then you can end up wherever you like. I mean, to be a lecturer is an amazing achievement from where you started. So next, we're going to go on to hear from Abby. Unfortunately, Abby can't be with us in person today, but she has recorded her story about her role as a support worker.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Abigail Gibbon and I work for a service called WorkLink within East Riding of Yorkshire Council. I'm sorry I can't be here today, but I've got some information on my journey through working within the council, all for WorkLink. Firstly, a bit of what WorkLink do as a service. We have two bases, one at Cottingham and one at Subi. Our role is to support adults with learning disabilities into employment. We aim to offer a varied range of opportunities while gaining skills required for employment. At any of the two sites, we offer employment skills and practical training, aiming to promote a realistic working environment, enabling people to understand what an employer would expect. Each of the training areas aims to enhance the work skills needed to enable people to thrive in the workplace. I first attended Hull University doing nursing, with the aim to specialise in learning disability nursing. However, due to personal issues, I had to withdraw. I always knew that I wanted to be in some sort of caring industry, and in 2004 I started as a volunteer within WorkLink. This was when we were based in Beverley, and I was helping out in the gardens. In September of the same year, I was then successful in getting a post within the team, which was a basic programme worker for then named caring caterers. This was in the cafe, supporting service users in the dining area with customer skills, health and safety and food service. In 2005, I also did it on a casual basis at Carers Emergency Respite Carer. This is a call-out service where I was travelling around East Riding on evenings and weekends to support families in their homes. I did this until 2015 when I stopped due to other commitments. In 2009, my role as an employment support worker began, where I was based in the kitchen in Cottingham. We moved to Cottingham in 2007. And we're open to the public and are a busy cafe serving a menu that's in line with the East Riding Leisure Centres. In 2014, I moved within the team to the same role, but was more employment based. So this was out in the community. So I went from training service users in the training areas to then supporting in job search, creating CVs, attending interviews, and then hopefully inductions and training once a position was found. In 2019, I then became an employment training coordinator. I undertook data sheets, employment search, attending network events, and supervising other staff. During this time, I completed my Level 3 leadership course and was recognised at the Adult Social Care and Health Achievements Award in June this year as a finalist of Rising Star. And finally, in October just gone, I was successful interviewed for the Senior Employment Officer post. Looking back at my journey through WorkLink, it has been very varied, from working in gardens, kitchens, supporting employment in the community. However, now I'm more office-based, helping to run the WorkLink building on a daily basis. I thoroughly enjoy my role, seeing the results of people training in the areas, then moving on to employment, but also other aspects such as independent living, travel training, and that's the true inspiration of why we work in adult social care. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.
That's great. That's just hearing there from Abby Gibbon. So that's just a different type of career within the learning disabilities and how she's worked as a support worker and then obviously now progressed on to Senior Employability Officer. I'm going to move on to another video next and we're going to hear from Lucy, who is a speech and language therapist.
Speech and language therapists work with people who have Sounds obvious, but speech and language difficulties. Most people, when you say, oh, I'm a speech and language therapist, they say, oh, like the King's Speech, or oh, if you're stammering. And my usual answer is, yeah, that's a small aspect of it. We work with babies that have been born with cleft lips and cleft palates, children with different syndromes, a lot with autistic children, all the way up to adults who had head injuries, strokes, a huge range of people. What inspired me to get into speech and language therapy? I did linguistics as my undergraduate degree. I found out that there was a career in which you could work with people to help them to get their speech back. I've always wanted a job where I can work with people all day, every day, and it just kind of made sense. During my training, there's been loads and loads of outstanding moments. One particular that sticks in mind, I was working at a special needs school and there was a boy there who had global developmental delay and severe epilepsy. He was very kind of absorbed in his own world, played by himself. When I was assessing him, I tried this thing called intensive interaction, where you mimic their actions and mimic their vocalizations. So he was clapping. He quite enjoyed the sensory aspect of just clapping like this. And so I just went up to him and I clapped along with him. And he kind of made an eye contact and I got a small smile. And after I kept mimicking his actions, eventually he'd come and show me the toy he was playing with. And I just thought that's such a huge step for a child who's just met me to decide that actually I'm worth communicating with. So yeah, that was a really special moment. My favourite aspect of training as a speech and language therapist is that I get to meet so many different people. I've been at a special school, a nursery, a primary school. I'm soon to be working in a care home. Just getting to know each person individually and taking a really person-centred approach to my therapy is something I really enjoy. In 5 years' time, I'd quite like to work with children with special needs. So I really like special needs schools because I think the support that you can give to a child there, it's a privilege to be able to help a child in the school setting and help their teachers to understand their types of communication and ways that they can be supported.
There we go. So we heard from Lucy there, who is a speech and language therapist. So we're going to move on to our next presenter, which is Chris Rogers. And Chris is going to talk about his journey as an admin apprentice with the Humber Foundation Trust, which I think the admin side of roles get forgotten quite a lot, but actually without those sort of essential services and support, the rest of the services and the team can't work. So if I hand over to you now, Chris, and you can talk through your journey.
Earlier, Chris did jump off this. I don't know if he's come back.
Oh, says it's here, but I do wonder if it's. Let me just see if that works. I think it might be an issue with his mic.
He's typing.
Yes, we can hear you now, Chris. That's brilliant. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, no problem. So it started off at school when GCSEs, but then I ended up going to business admin level 2. At that time, I wanted to go to the GP route, so just see what a GP surgery is like. So I was a traineeship, which was unpaid work and that. And then that developed into a real job. And then in the end, I wanted to go to the Humber because I thought it might be much more interested in the GP side of things. So that's when I got a job at CAMS on Walker Street, and that's for the senior admin job. It's because since I've already had the level 2 business admin, they'd allowed me just to go ahead and have the level 3 senior job. And that's my journey.
That's great. Thanks very much, Chris. And if we go on to what your day in the life is like, what do you do in your role?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit to my role. I've already put a few things on there. It's mostly dealing with several different departments like crisis team, home treatment team, contact point, and looked after children. And they're all different. So I have to learn each individual role of all of them. But it's typing letters, referrals, sending them off, directing patients, because you get quite a lot of calls from patients and we have to direct them elsewhere. We have to learn how the system works, because a lot of referrals are on the system as well as emails. So we have to learn the system first. We have to do medical reviews as well. We just book them in. So once they're all booked in, and then we have to organise the doctor, the staff member, And there is reception staff, they're level 2, so we have to manage them quite closely. So that's what we do as well. We have to arrange the meetings. So these meetings could be crisis team, it could be with any department. So this is clinical and non-clinical we have to arrange. And then we have to take minutes and do the agenda and all that. Room bookings, I've just booked rooms as well, and I have to keep an eye on it because a lot of people just book rooms and leave it, and it can be a bit of a pain. And yeah, we deal with a lot of patients. That's face-to-face, over the phone, complaints, compliments, pretty much anything.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. That's interesting. It's just seeing a different side of those disability learning careers. So if we move on next, we're going to hear from Claire Sharp. And Claire is a social worker for the local authority. So over to you, Claire.
Hi there, so my name's Claire and I'm a newly qualified social worker. I work in Futures Plus, which is a learning disability and autism team at East Riding Council. I also completed the social work degree apprenticeship, so my journey began into social work much later in life. I was married very young. I moved abroad. We travelled around quite a lot. I had children. My sort of part-time jobs fit around the children. I got good GCSE results at school, but I tended to do jobs that fit around the children. And it was as they became teenagers that they didn't want more around anymore, and I suddenly kind of thought, well, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I started volunteering for a charity called Home Start, who were based in Hull, and they provided support to families with children 5 and under who maybe needed a friend and some support. I absolutely love doing that, and I wanted to see if I could make a career out of it. I was lucky enough to get a role with the East Riding Council as a family support practitioner, working with children aged 9 to 19, supporting them and their families at times of crisis. From there, I moved into adult services, and I went to work in the adult safeguarding team, which I absolutely loved. And from there, somebody suggested that I apply for the apprenticeship. Going to university was not something that I had ever seen myself doing. I didn't ever think that I was maybe the type of person that went to university. And I was, 42 at the time, and I thought I was maybe too old. Anyway, I applied. Thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll give it a go, and I was successful. So I have a Bachelor of Science, first class degree, no less. I attended the University of Lincoln and got loads of experience through that. And it was in my final placement at university. I had very little experience of working with anybody with learning disability. And one of the things that concerned me a little bit was, how do you communicate with people with a learning disability? I don't want to patronise them, but also I don't want to talk to them in a way that they don't understand or communicate with them in a way they don't understand. So I decided to do my final placement in Futures Plus. And that is a year ago tomorrow. I did my final placement. I refused to leave, and I was successful in gaining a job as a social worker in the team. And that's where I am today. So I'm a qualified social worker in the learning disability and autism team, newly qualified. I'm completing something called the ASYE, which is your assessed and supported year in employment. So that's another year whereby I get to practice, enroll, but I'm also kind of more supported, and I get to embed the learning that I found when I was at university. So I suppose my journey is maybe not a usual route, you know, somebody who never thought they would be in this position. And here I am, a professional. So I guess what I'm saying is, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And there isn't necessarily a linear, straightforward route into anything. There's a lot to be said for doing something that you love and you know, finding a career that way. And that's exactly what I've done. So my next slide is so this is a day in the life of, and again, similar to what Gemma was saying, no 2 days ever the same. And it probably would be easier to say what I don't do. And trying to remember and write down everything that I do on a daily basis, yeah, was really difficult. So ordinarily my day starts at 9 a.m. Now that day, depending on what I'm doing, it might be that I'm going into the office, catching up on emails, on calls and seeing colleagues. Or it might be that I'm on duty. So we operate a duty system whereby we look at things coming into the team, whether that be a placement's gone into crisis, whether we've had a new referral in for somebody and that needs sending to the manager, or determining whether, you know, they meet the criteria for our team. It might be that I'm going straight out to a visit, and that visit might be chairing a review of somebody's care and support plan. So I work for social services, so it's adult social care. So we are looking at social care needs of adults. It might be that I'm going to a professionals meeting, so it may well be that somebody's gone into crisis and we've had to chair an urgent meeting to look at the support in place. It may be that I am taking one of my service users to look around a day service or a college, or even agreeing the tenancy on their first home, their first independent home. It might be that I'm meeting a service user for the first time and going to explain to them who I am, what my role is, and to seek their consent to undertake what we call a Care Act assessment. So that's a care and support assessment under the Care Act. It may be that I'm seeking support from professionals to manage crisis. And then it's a case of dashing back home or dashing back to the office to log everything on our recording system or finish an assessment. Because in our world, if it's not case noted, it didn't happen. So yeah, amazing, tearful, proud moments. Probably, there's been so many amazing things that have happened just in this year while I've been in this team. I'd say one of my proudest moments was I went to an independent supported living to chair the review for somebody for their care and support plan, to make sure that their care and support plan continue to meet their needs and achieve the outcomes that they wanted to achieve. And I went to meet the person and I spoke to them about what was important to them and asked them if they wanted to attend their review, and absolutely they did. And I went into their flat and I stuck flip chart paper all around their flat, and we talked about what was important to them, what they needed to keep them safe and happy, what was currently working well for them and what wasn't working very well. And that person told everybody in that room all of the things that were important to them. And it was fantastic. And it wasn't until later on I found out that that lady at the age of 34 had never attended her review before. And so she'd attended, she'd engaged, and it was amazing. So that's probably one of my best days ever, but most days are best days.
That's great. Thanks very much, Claire. Thanks for sharing your story. I think it just shows that if it's something that you're passionate about and you want to achieve, you can do. So thanks for sharing your story.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So that takes us to the end of our speakers. So it's really to have a look. Are there any questions? Does anybody want to ask any questions? Is there anything in the chat? I don't know if we've got anything in the chat coming through.
No, there's nothing in the chat.
Nothing in the chat. So any of the delegates on the call, if you do have anything you want to ask our presenters, you can pop that in the chat now and we can pick that up. Just to say that the session is being recorded, so you will be able to watch it back as well if there's any information that you want to go back on and recap. That's fine. So I've just popped in here, so you'll pick these up when the slides come through and we share those with you. This is just around a Prince's Trust programme that we have in York and North Yorkshire. So if you do have anybody that needs support entering into employment, there is a service there that's available for young people to access. So what we've got here is just a bit of a plug for our website. So our Careers Hub website is where all our information is going to go from today's webinar, and there's lots of interactive information on there as well around career pathways, being able to search and apply for jobs, apprenticeships, and some useful guides around CV writing and interview techniques. So I hope that you found today's session useful in learning about the variety of different careers in learning disabilities. And before we close the session, I'm going to pop a poll in the chat, which is kind of a bit of an evaluation tool, really. And if I could just ask people just to spend a couple of minutes answering the questions for me, I would really appreciate that, because that really helps us improve our webinars as we go through the year. And I'd just like to take this opportunity just to thank all of our speakers today for giving up their time and joining us and sharing their stories. So if I end my slideshow and stop sharing my screen, hopefully I shall be able to remember how to do the polls in the chat. And hopefully it will launch. It's just loading. If you, yeah, there we go. So seems to have picked up the allied health professions, but if you ignore it saying allied health professions and we look at the learning disability careers, and if you want to complete the questions, then I can tweak that when I do the evaluation. I don't know why it's pulled that one through, but yeah, if I ask people to do that and just spend a couple of minutes doing that, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. And as I say, the session has been recorded. The recording will be embedded within the presentation, and then the presentation will be shared with all of the delegates from today, and I'll make sure that that goes onto our website as well, so people are able to access that. Gemma, did you want to?
Yeah, I've just noticed in the Q&A at the top there is actually a question from somebody.
Oh, fab.
It's rather than being in the chat, it's actually under Q&A.
Okay, it's just thinking about it for me. Okay, so I don't know who wants to pick up this question, but it's can you advise on how to advise someone who is actually neurodiverse themselves wanting to get into such a career?
I can put some input on there if you want.
Oh, thanks, Gemma.
Quite a lot of students who are neurodiverse themselves, and one of the things that we've always felt is that it's actually really enhanced their understanding of other people. And allowed them to have a little bit of that working knowledge of what it's like. So I would recommend that, I mean, depending which route you want to go, obviously, if someone's wanting to go to university, we have lots and lots of support systems at all universities to support anybody who's neurodiverse. There's lots of things in place. But I would just be honest about any of the difficulties you might have in relation to that. To any employer. Most people are quite open-minded and will accept people, particularly in our area. I often say if we can't be accepting of people's differences in learning disabilities, then there's something really wrong.
Thanks, Gemma. Thanks for answering that. I noticed that somebody's popped in the chat as well that they've maybe been having some difficulties with the sound. I know for me the sound has been okay, so hopefully it has recorded okay, and then it will be much clearer when you receive the recording of that. So apologies to those that have had any issues with the sound. And I think that's it for the chat. I can't see anything else, so that's great. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for joining today. We'll make sure that recording's shared. And again, just thank you to everybody who's taken their time today to come and speak for us. And hope you all have a lovely evening.